What's up, card fighters? We are coming in now to the third round. We've actually had a very long round two, surprisingly. But because we are now in round three, we are going to go in and have David Senokossoff versus Andrew Williams. I'm sorry, not Anderson Williams.
Round three is going on as we speak. We have an Ava versus Chronojet matchup right now.
Yes.
Two decks we've seen on stream before, but not versing each other. This is going to be a very interesting match. Both of these players very familiar with each other and their decks, so we're going to see how this plays out. And we do have Mr. Anderson going second with the Grade 1 Rush. Drawing a card off of the Gungram and swinging straight to the dome piece. Plays proceeding at the speed of light here as both players know their strengths, know their decks, and know the plays they can make. We have Mr. David going into his Grade 2 turn, searching his order.
Yep, and here we go, getting the Grade 1 order, putting on the field. We first round saw Ranking, second round saw Chronojet, and now we have both of them fight each other in round three. Let's see how it goes. What's going to be kind of interesting here is that Anderson went in for the early rush, surprisingly. What is kind of interesting in this rush is that you kind of don't minus because Maze's Gear draws you an additional card, as well as once you call the Gunga Ram and Soul Charge 1, you can Soul Blast 2 for GG and draw an additional card. Because
Anderson checking a heal trigger in the interim, protecting his Vanguard.
Yep, it does look like the response isn't working to its favor. Attacking the Gungan Ram, interesting choice. Gungan Ram does Soul Charge, but there's a good chunk of Soul Charging one with Brainwash Roll and another Gungan Ram coming in later. All right, here we go. Riding into the smoke here, attacking the rear guard, denying the counterblast, and dry checking. I think that was a trigger. I couldn't really quite see. Coming on the discard. And we're finally getting into the girl, the one and only Eva.
Yep, and as we've seen before on this stream, this deck has a lot of power behind it. It has a lot of consistency and a lot of searchability, with the issue being, does Gear Chronicle outpace it? We're about to find out.
So we're going in for the 20k swing. Ooh, actually, he does not have the third order. But I still believe this is a 20k attack. There you go, taking it, damaging the Bailiff. And guarding for the 2-pass. First check critical, giving power. Interesting.
Interesting decisions from Senokossoff.
On David's side.
We pass back to Anderson, who's going to be able to stride on his first Grade 3 turn, which is going to be very, very lucrative for him, I believe.
Yeah, it does look like he's going in and grabbing the Bailey from the deck. Let's see if he finds it.
Interesting.
What's his damage? Is there a Chronojet in the damage?
I believe
There's a Bailey in the damage, right?
There's a Bailey in the damage, but there's no Chronojet. He also did place his marker for stride. What is it called?
The Chronojet Crest.
The Chronojet Crest, he did place it above the damage zone, which does make it slightly confusing to read, but it is a very interesting turn of circumstance. He does not get the power on the swirler, I believe, or he does. I wasn't able to observe that. He does get the power on the swirler.
Yep, so
He resolves the upstream, nearly forgetting to trigger the effect. Getting another swirler behind the Vanguard. Very interesting choice from Anderson. But a very good one nonetheless. It does provide extra pressure, and especially with the threat of the triple drive behind it, a large number makes it very much a perfect guard or bust situation.
Yep, so he's going to be going in for currently 28, 41, then an additional 5k on the reflip, 46, and then calling himself another upstream, which he is choosing for the 5k power from the favorite.
and that time leap being so useful and so helpful in this matchup. And he does have the PG.
Yes, and finally, the Elementaria does work. We're just placing it on the field because of the triple drag.
Heel trigger for Anderson going back down to 2. He's going to put the power on the Swirler. Very interesting choice. He's going to go upstream into the Vanguard, I believe.
Upstream's going in for 25.
Very solid number.
It takes the point of damage.
And upstream again, jumping back through time, getting another grade 1, another GG, it looks like.
Going to GG, Soul Blasting 2 to draw a card, and GG will be getting 5k. So that Swirler got the trigger, 18, plus the 1 soul charge, 23, plus the other soul charge, 28, plus the 5k from the crest, 33, plus the boost of the GG, swinging for a total of 46k.
A huge number from Anderson being able to push through for that damage there. De-striding at the end of turn.
That's because your pop gave me I gotta return the favor.
Offered a drink there. Yep. Friend of the stream.
It does look like he is checking his damage on, making sure his hand and getting ready for the Eva turn. It does look like we haven't seen his third order come in hand, which is very unfortunate on David's side.
Eva does seem to struggle without being able to hit that third order. Very unlucky for David here. I believe one was damaged, and he has yet to just draw into another, which is very unfortunate circumstance. He does take a Swirler out of the deck for Anderson, though, so it does put a slight halt to his shenaniganry, but he can just shuffle back the other Swirler on stride next turn. And here we see the Ob come out from effect, so it does get the critical trigger. Bonus.
Yeah, but it does look like the upseat is also getting critical, but he doesn't have the third order, so the critical is unattainable.
Sadly, that is a clause on that card. You are correct.
He is getting tight, I think, on David's side. Not able to put a lot of pressure. Gives him the Elementaria, so both Elementarias will be out of deck as at this point once discarded.
Anderson sitting on a very fat hand right now, being able to take advantage of his early lead and first stride rather beautifully.
Yep, but it does look like they're still evenly at 3. Very simple turn on David's side for the fact that he's able to get the third order onto the field, which kind of slightly unfortunate. Looks like he's discarding once more 2 go into Fate Rider, and at this point there are 2 cards face up for the crest, giving 10k to the front row. He's moving up the GG, popping himself another Brainwash Roller, so once again additional 5k to both Brainwash Rollers. That Vanguard attack is going to be beefy. There's like GG's going in for 18.
Anderson taking full advantage of that crest's passive ability. That limited number gain is insane over time. You just accrue more and more value. Your front row gets more and more nasty, and you don't even have to worry about the fact that your Chronojet does not have Persona Ride at that point. You just push them into the dirt.
Yep, and it does look like he sends in GG once more away, getting into the Upstream Dragon. And that Upstream Dragon is part of the target card for the Fate Rider skill.
And we see a perfect guard come down from David, and a draw trigger for Anderson on the first one. He's going to give the power to Upstream. Drawing a card, second check, no trigger, third check, draw trigger again for Anderson, accruing card advantage at an exponential rate. Very lucky for him. And we have the Upstream swinging in for, I believe, since there are 2 cards, or 3 cards now because of the because of our stride friend here, we have about 15 bonus on top of the trigger bonus. So that is, what was that, 34?
Yes.
34 going at the Vanguard. Very strong numbers. Very heavy numbers.
Are you talking about the Upstream?
Yeah, the Upstream is going for 34.
The Upstream was 15 plus the trigger 25 plus the 10 35 plus Fate Rider skill 45.
Even bigger than I had calculated. That was my mistake.
Here we go with the last attack. It is going to get the plus 10k power from the card's trigger. It's actually plus 15 now because you turned up another one.
Yeah, that is
So we're looking
insane.
at 23, 28, 30, 30, plus the boost of 13, 46, plus the extra 5K, 51. Sorry, plus the tiny hit, 56 to the video.
Huge numbers coming from the Chronojet player. And David has finally hit his third order, but is it going to be enough coming into this turn? He's already been pushed to 5. He wasn't able to he was able to survive, but at what cost? He had to expend multiple resources just to live that last stride turn. He has to do or die now, and I do believe that if he gives the Chronojet player another turn after this, it is going to be the end of the game.
Yeah, but doesn't look like he got the grade 2, so he ended up binding one of the units, but I don't see any big problems yet. He could have just placed it just to give utility, not worry about the binding, just to have that option available if he wants to attack the rear guard.
David trying to expand as much advantage as he can, but he has very few resources to play with here. His back is against the wall with this.
Back against the wall.
Don't you start.
I know. It's the final stand.
There's the Ob, and it does have a crit this time.
Obscadid both had criticals.
Yes, sir. We're going to go with a heavy column from David, swinging first with the...
Oh, no, those are to represent Persona, right? No, Obscadid should have a critical because he hasn't played the order as of yet.
I do believe you are correct there, pardon. I was misreading the game state. But we do have Ava skill popping off here.
Did we get another boy? Yes.
And now we do have an Ob with the critical. And we have Anderson perfect guarding the Vanguard Sword.
Oh, look at that perfect guard. Arlem.
Bushiroad knocking it out of the park with these fancy-ass cards coming out of this delicious Chronojet stride set.
Yep. Order that he needed earlier, and the Bubble Mine.
Unlucky for David here.
Yeah, it does look like he didn't get any real strong.
Here comes the real push, though. We have some very big columns coming at Anderson.
Anderson is going to be able to take one, so all he has to worry about is guarding one last attack. It does look like he's signing on this one, pulls the critical trigger, giving plus 10 to Vanguard.
Very lucky for Anderson. David going after the Swirler, but he guards nonetheless.
No,
Does he?
understandable.
He does guard nonetheless.
The Swirler. He wants that power onto the field. So going in here, we finally discard. And are we going into the next stage? And
We
there it
are
is.
hitting the big boy himself, Chronojet next stage, spinning to the bottom.
What's funny enough is
And an upstream for Anderson. This game looks like it's about to be over.
so it does look like he's going in for the next stage training right off the bat. Any triggers will most likely be going to the back row rear guard for the Chronojet on the rebound.
Counting through the drop zone, seeing how many triggers are taken out of the deck in public knowledge. David forced to make a very shaky decision here. Hopefully he has the numbers to put the guard up, but I don't know if he's going to be able to withstand the next few attacks.
So looking at it, he is trying to push him to the wall. He's wondering any triggers he's been seeing. We've seen a good chunk of triggers. It's like 9, 10. So it's not very well told that like if he's going to be hitting one. What's interesting, even though it is a Dark States deck, the soul is not used as much as you expect. So the deck is still pretty chalky and looking very good from the top of the deck. But let's see what happens.
They're confirming yet again the states of the drop zone and the board state between Anderson and David. David trying to math out the odds of surviving this turn. He's going to need to be very lucky and at the very least, if not hit an over trigger, at least hit 2 heals. And that is game 1 for Anderson. Anderson takes the first as David goes through his deck and shows the shame of all those triggers shinily sitting at the bottom of the pile.
Slowly torching him, but it does look like we are going to be proceeding into game two. Anderson up by 1, and David coming in on the back, going first at the start. So while we're waiting it out, what are your thoughts so far on the new Chronojet Dexa?
It is a very strong contender, but I also feel it does suffer from new deck syndrome, in which it is coming into a format as the first of its kind, and therefore has a bit more strength over the competitors than it should normally. Regardless, though, as more decks gain their G zones, as more classic clans come back into Overdress, and we see more expansion in the format with new set releases, I think it's everything's going to balance out.
Thanks for watching.
Sorry, it does look
good?
like you hit one of the buttons there moving around your...
That's on me then.
Sorry
Technical
about that,
difficulties
guys.
aside. Yeah, Chronojet is looking very strong. I'm more excited to see its impact in premium overall, though. I do believe the premium impact for the deck is going to be a lot more substantial than what we see here in Overdress. As good as a contender as it is, and a solid choice for today's event, I do want to know what happens in the later format.
All right, so we are back at it. We were fixing everything. Apologies for that random noise. So, like you were saying, you're totally right. It does suffer from new deck syndrome. But what's kind of interesting in this case is that it brings in an old mechanic that we used to use into a newer format with some restraints that were there prior. Guys, we are getting ready to the next round, next game, and we will be off for a small amount of time. All right,
Apologies
we're
for
back.
the technical
And,
difficulties again, ladies and gentlemen. We've been fighting
Nah,
this today.
it's not technical difficulties. Don't worry about it. We just have so much more information coming towards us, getting ready for the next round, and things being moved. But we are finally back. We are getting right into the match here. It does look like we're at the grade 2 moment in the game. And because David had to go first, because he lost the round, he is going to proceed into riding into his grade 3 EVA. And we do know in the following turn, Chronojet will be going into its stride for Fave Rider.
Unlike last game, David actually has the third order on curve, so we are going to be able to see the deck's full potential pop off as it should. It's going to be a very interesting matchup now, a lot more back and forth compared to the last one. David going through, propping Eva's skill, grabbing a card, setting up his board state. Get some solid numbers coming down for him. There's the 5 on Eva. There's the obs. He's ready.
What I find kind of apparent going into this match is that the focus that's on the one obstacle, this one does attack just the Vanguard here. It's not attacking the Gungan Ram. It's just going to be a 15k swing, so it's still pretty much a 10k guard, as you see there, with a draw trigger. And mostly, it's a little bit self-explanatory. He's getting the grade 3 obstacle. He's putting in the pressure where he can, giving the critical. Now, what I think is like just detrimental is just that turn 2 Chronojet goes off. Just that obstinate variable just makes it very difficult for the person going first to get past that obstacle.
Yeah, as it was in the start of GBT01 back in the day, as it rings true again now, having that advantage of having a G-zone versus decks that do not really does give you an edge above the competition, especially if they're forced to go first. Going second being very lucrative in that.
And here we go. We're going to see exactly what we've been talking about. Anderson Williams discarding, going into his Chronojet, activating skill, searching his deck for the Bailey or the Chronojet, depending on what he already has in hand. Does he whiff again? Nope. Gets the Bailey, goes into Fate Rider, and will be drawing a card on shuffle.
Just a very, very clean line of play. It just feels almost automatic in these matchups.
Because it is.
Very, very few times do you not have the resources to pull this play off, and very few times do you break out of it. It is very clean. We see him going in with the upstream column now at the Vanguard.
Yep. And there we go, drawing for Bailey. And finally going with the upstream swing. It's a little bit small delay, but we're catching it on the spot here at the stream table. Sending the upstream away, has the Gungan Ram in the front row, so probably giving a little bit of a booster to there. But the question is, what's in soul, what's available? But it does look like he decides to go in with the Brainwash behind the Vanguard. It was very interesting from the last game we saw, they were focusing on rear guards having good soul boosters to proceed, like the Brainwash Roller. But for Anderson, he is focused on boosting up the Vanguard, making sure he gets criticals out of the way, PG's gone, and anything that he can just rip out, the Vanguard's taken care of.
Yeah, taking absolute advantage of that triple drive threat, making it that David has to drop cards from hand to not risk a heavy loss to a double crit or a double draw.
Speaking about critical, here it is.
Here's the first, second nothing, third nothing.
But double GG, which is going to be kind of a worrisome opportunity here if he still has any available. Now, because the sign being turned face up, upstream will be swinging for 20k. Returning once more and calling up GG to Sobasu and draw a card. That Gungan Ram did gain the trigger, so it's an 18k base. With the 5k2 front row, 23, with the boost of the 13k, is looking like a 36k attack.
Very, very huge columns, so consistently from Chronojet, especially in part 2 to the bonuses that cards like Brainwash Flare apply to the deck. So much soul charging and drawing gives you so much just consistency overall. You get so many cards, you get so many pieces. You just never really miss with this deck. David is surviving though, and he does have the fourth order, so he might be able to crack back in his own favor in this matchup. But again, like game 1, it does seem like it's do or die time for him.
Yeah, we have been going into this match. It does look like David's already being put to 5, which is overall, like I said, like we keep saying on repeat, detrimental. But like in this moment, what do you do in the moment? Like, do you see Chronojet just dominating that area for the fact that it's able to proceed going second and has the highest advantage going second?
As I said before, I feel it's a case of new deck syndrome, but at the same time, overall, going into future sets and future releases, I feel that Chronojet is still going to maintain its strength, and it's still going to be a very solid contender. The biggest issue I see the deck encountering is more control strategies popping up later on down the line as more people become aware of it and trying to quell the rush that it can present in the early and mid game.
100%. But we are getting into the match here. It does look like David's working away. Has that draw trigger in the front row that has the persona right. That does look like a measly 22k attack.
Not much of a threat for Anderson here as he has a full gorilla grip of cards in his hand.
So it does look like he's putting the Bowl Mine in, countercharging one, and Soul Blasting it right out in order to call his obstacle. Doesn't look like there's an obstacle that he needs in there. And going in with that mega shuffle right there.
Really praying to the gods for some good luck there.
Yep, and it does look like the counterblast is kind of wasted on that attack.
Sadly, it is a failure to find. It does not look like this game, this match in general is going. Never mind, we have an over trigger and a heal for David. What a turnaround. Very, very huge for him here. Gives him an opportunity to get back into this game, hopefully, but will it be enough?
Well, the attack was PG'd, and that rear guard will only be 2 damage, so mostly you're just giving him the 2 counterblasts he needs, and he's just going to take it.
To be fair, Mr. Anderson did have that counter blast beforehand regardless. It's just the level of how he uses it. He is going back into the time-traveling horsey over here as we go into the bread and butter upstream combo of the deck.
Yep, it does look like we have another Fate Rider coming on board, has the upstream available on the field. Decides to swing with the Gungan Ram. There's already 2 face up, so it's an 18k swing, so the intercept is enough. Now we have the 8k booster for Fate Rider, looking like a 28-36 plus the 10k, well actually 15k now because he turns on your face up. 51k swing coming
with
on the
triple
Vanguard.
drive, and we saw him
First
check the
check,
Elementaria
third
by
check,
mistake.
Critical trigger, all effects going to that upstream. I don't know what the target of the new card revealed is. It does look like it's probably this upstream right here. That's the one that got the power from the Fate Rider. It does look like there's 3 face up, so plus 15 twice, so that's plus 30, plus the 55 when he attacks, so that's 45 with the boost of
The crest boost back row units as well?
No.
No?
Fate
Fate Rider